What's going on, y'all? Robert Sykes, KetoSavage.com, and welcome to another AMA Ask Me Anything episode. This one is all about water retention and training on a ketogenic diet. And before I dive into this, let's roll the intro. All right, so today's question is brought to us by Monica, and she asks how to deal with water retention on keto and strength training. I lost 68 pounds on keto. Congratulations, by the way, Monica. But now every time I do strength training, I gain weight, and it looks like it's water retention because once I take a day off, I go back to normal. Any advice? Maybe I'm doing something wrong? All right, you're not doing anything wrong. Let's talk about water retention and the ketogenic diet first and foremost. When you eat a bunch of carbohydrates, lots of sugars, lots of carbs, then your body's going to store a lot of glycogen as a way to, keep that energy stored up. 1 gram of glycogen holds about 3 or 4 grams of water weight. This is why when a lot of people first go keto, they lose a lot of weight right off the bat because their body's flushing out all that glycogen and thus all that water retention. Once their kidneys flush out all of their fluids, you also excrete a lot of your minerals. This is why supplementing with enough sodium and potassium is super, super important on a ketogenic diet. However, as you become more deeply fat adapted, your body becomes incredibly efficient at replenishing the glycogen storage and not being near as volatile from a water retention standpoint. Your body doesn't tap into glycogen as much. It's more glycogen sparing because you're using fatty acid metabolism for most of your energy needs. And then it only taps into glycogen when you're doing highly glycolytic demanding sports like CrossFit, for instance. For this reason, your water volatility, your weight from a result of water retention becomes much less volatile the more deeply adapted you are and the more consistent you are with your nutrition. If you're constantly eating carbs and then not eating carbs, going keto, going carnivore, you're going to have a lot of fluctuation. Once you become more deeply adapted, that becomes much less so the case. Now, on an acute level, when you train, that's an acute form of inflammation. Like when you're training very hard, very intensely, you're having little micro tears in your muscle tissue, you're taxing your body's tendons, joints, ligaments, muscle, skeletal structure, central nervous system. All of that acute inflammation is going to result in some water retention as well. It's kind of like when you break an arm, your arm swells up, you have some fluid retention there, you have a lot of inflammation there. When you get stung by a bee, you have a lot of swelling and inflammation there. When you train, that's what's happening on a acute level with that muscle group. For instance, I trained legs on Saturday, had a brutal leg workout, did all kinds of drop sets and supersets and heavy squats and dumbbell lunges, etc., etc. The next day, keeping calories pretty much constant, I woke up 3 pounds heavier. I didn't gain 3 pounds of fat overnight. That's simply just additional fluid retention as a result of that hard training session and all of the acute inflammation in my lower body. Totally normal, totally fine, and just a part of training. That's a good form of inflammation. Your body can have a hormetic effect to that and grow more muscle tissue, strengthen its joints, ligaments, and tendons, and all that's a very positive thing. So don't associate that increase in scale weight, that temporary increase in scale weight, as being a negative thing. This is why you said if you take a day off from training, the weight goes back down. It's because your body's flushing out that inflammation and the water that comes with it. The main thing is to continue training. You don't want to overtrain, but a lot of people are scared of overtraining. It's much harder to do than people realize. As long as you're consuming adequate electrolytes, staying fully hydrated, and consistently training, your body's going to have much less of a volatility with regard to how much of an inflammation that stimulus is, and as a result, you're going to start accruing less water retention and inflammation when you have a training session. So a lot of people make the mistake of they'll train legs, they'll see an increase in the scale weight, and then they'll be scared to train legs again. That's the last thing you want to do. You want to keep training. You want to keep being consistent in that training. And you just have to know that temporary increase in scale weight is just that. It's just temporary. It's just water. It's just fluid. It's not a bad thing at all. So that's what I would say to you, Monica, with regard to your question there. You're not doing anything wrong. There's not going to be much of a change between how you would train on a ketogenic diet versus how you would train on a carbohydrate-dependent diet. Your performance is probably going to suffer a little bit when you first go keto. I don't know how long you've been keto, but there doesn't need to be this massive shift in how you train between one diet and the next. Simply train, let yourself become fat adapted, and then keep steadily adding in some progressive overload so that you can get better and better and better, and your body can acclimate to the stressors and the stimulus that you're subjecting it to. That's all I've got to say about that. Monica, you requested some toasted almond coconut bricks. We've got those headed your way. Again, for anybody that does not know how these AMA videos work, if you submit a question via the link below in the description and I use your question, I will hook you up with some bricks with the flavor of your choosing, and see you on YouTube here. Thank you so much for the question, Monica. Thank you all for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.